New Year. Hope we all had a nice holiday season. Here we are in 2025. I'd like to call to order the January 7th regular meeting as the Kirchhoff Road Steering Committee of the Rolling Meadows Planning and Zoning Commission. Call to order at 7:02 p.m. Staff, could you call the roll and we'll declare a quorum if we have one.
Sure. Commissioner
Mr. Savage.
Here. Commissioner Frostein.
Here.
Commissioner Gherkin.
Here.
Commissioner Modi.
Here.
Alderman McHale.
Here.
Alderman Reyes.
Here.
Chair Buckingham.
Here.
And Leonie is absent.
So with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And 5 of the commission.
Sure.
Plus 7 with the steering committee, I declare a quorum. Now it's on to, I believe, the approval of the last meeting minutes, December 3rd, 2024. Any questions or discussion items on the minutes from the last meeting? Hearing none, can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting of the minutes for the Planning and Zoning Commission for December 3rd, 2024.
Motion by Commissioner Gherkin. Is there a second?
A second.
Seconded by Commissioner Furstein. By voice vote, all in favor, please state yes.
Yep.
Yes. All opposed, please state no. With 5 yeses and 0 nos, the motion carries and the minutes of the December 3rd, 2024 meeting are so approved. There are no items of new business, and the one item of existing business is a meeting of the Kirchhoff Road Steering Committee. This is intended to be a second or third workshop. This is the third workshop that we've had to review the hard work by Mr. Cross and his staff from Lakota Group regarding the final draft report of a study for, what do we call this thing anyway?
Kirchhoff Road Planning Study.
Planning study, okay, I'll get it right. So we're here to review the draft report that's been presented to us. We've all received a copy, and I see we've got members of the public here. Welcome. You're welcome to attend, but I would let everyone know that we've been advised by staff that this is really just intended as an internal discussion of the steering committee, and we're not really in a position tonight to take comment from the public at this time. There's been input from the public throughout this process from the Lakota Group and the city staff's efforts in terms of outreach and other open houses and surveys. There'll be opportunity going forward. I think probably, is this at the March meeting?
We're shooting for the March meeting.
We're shooting for the March meeting for a public hearing, at which time the public will be provided notice with an opportunity to provide comment and speak into the final report before its approval or recommendation to City Council. And then there'll be further opportunity for comment as we go through the process of actually implementing the plan, which could go a number of different directions and take various amounts of time, months, years, depending on how things shake out. So everyone's welcome to listen in attentively, or you leave if you so wish. But we're not really taking, as I said, questions, comments, or any public input tonight. But thank you again for coming.
Don't forget the phones.
Please silence your phones, or you're going to get fined.
That's right. Mine's already done.
Mr. Gherkin brought $2 just in
At
case.
$2.
So,
All I
okay.
have.
Sorry, if I could just add to that.
Yes.
If any of you, of the members of the public here tonight do have any questions or comments, please come and see me. I'll give you my work number and my email address. I'm happy to direct any questions over to me, and we can get back to you and liaise with our consultant and the commission at a later date.
Thank you for that, Mr. Savage. And again, hope you all understand, we're just trying to be as efficient as we can. This is a lengthy, multi-step process, and to get through this is just one of many steps. And so again, we're confident that public will have as much input as they feel as they want throughout the process, which is obviously the goal here, is not to force anything down anybody's throats, if you will, but to have this to be a collaborative process, and I think it has been to date, from what I can tell, through the hard work of Lakota Group and city staff. So again, appreciate everybody's understanding here. So with all that speechifying being said, I think we're on to a review of the draft final report of the corridor study. So would this be now an opportunity for Mr. Cross to, is there a summary, or how would you, staff, Andy, how would you like to proceed?
Mr. Chair, thank you very much. Again, I'm Andy Cross of the Lakota Group. I've had just the pleasure of working with you all throughout a lot of 2024. And we are right at the finish line on this exciting project. And so I understand that the plan was sent out to you guys a couple weeks ago. I know the holidays are always insane, but I hope you did find a few minutes to go through the final draft. And so my thought for tonight's discussion is not to just go through it word for word, but I'd like to take the chance to kind of go through the high points of it with you and go through what's new. We put a lot of work into this final report. You've seen it kind of come up. You've seen it gestate from its individual parts. And now we're at the point where we have a final document put together. And I'd love to go through it with you. Again, just hit on some of the high points. And so I have the PDF pulled up here, and if you have a copy, I invite you to kind of scroll along with me, and we can go through this and go through it in kind of a high level here.
Now, broadly speaking, a lot of the information that is in the report is material that we've covered before. So I sure hope that none of the recommendations and strategies that you saw in this document came as a surprise to you. We've gone through the economic development portion before. We've gone through the transportation and mobility elements before. And certainly the opportunity sites most recently, and the zoning recommendations. And so those really evolved from our discussions now into these final recommendations. So we'll go through them here. As you look through the report, and in fact just here, you'll see this is a placeholder cover. There are elements of this document that aren't complete yet. That includes an executive summary, the appendix. We haven't gathered all that material yet. There's a lot of photographs and graphics that we're still refining and putting in there, and a couple of maps we still want to work with the city on producing. Specifically, or one of them is a really neat one that will show the walkability of the park network around here, to show that the parks around here are actually really accessible, despite a lot of what we heard throughout the public engagement process, where people were lamenting the lack of parks. We need more parks. We need open space. And so I think this graphic that we're producing with the city, in cooperation with the city, will really tell a very powerful story. Pictures worth 1,000 words and all that. So these elements will be completed and refined. The Lakota Group team is already working on it, and we'll have that ready in the coming weeks as we look forward to the public hearing in March. And so I'd like to spend a few minutes kind of going over some of the higher level parts of the plan. So I'm going to go ahead and skip. You guys will all appear on this page. You have that to look forward to. The table of contents here will be refined. We left the page numbers out in case we end up omitting or adding pages throughout this final kind of revision process. We didn't want to go through and renumber everything. So, and you learn a lot of this through experience, like slow down. And so these the introductory pages here just talk a lot about the process that we all went through together. And then the vision statement here captures what really what we heard from the public and what the city's goal was with this project. And so we kind of captured that here in a powerful vision statement. And this is really what a lot of the strategies and recommendations in the various chapters pursue. So this is kind of a binding, sort of a summary vision statement there. It brings it all together. This is information here in the summary that we're all familiar with, but most readers of this document won't be. So that's why it's important to include a lot of summary information to give context about the corridor, really what went into it, and some of the high points. This map of parks we're producing in cooperation with the city, this walkshed map, right here is just what I was mentioning. It kind of talks about the walkability of the park network. And so this is the public engagement summary. And now we did pull a lot of this information together in the fall when we did a lot of that initial public engagement. But there's been a lot since then. And so including the visual preference survey that we're talking about this evening. So we're going to be pulling a lot of this information together and then formatting it into this report. And it's important to have an engagement summary so that future readers of this report and future residents are fully aware of the breadth of engagement that went into informing the recommendations that appear in this report. This wasn't just done by a consulting firm that just ran off into an office and made them on their own. This was informed by residents of Rolling Meadows. And so this engagement summary there will really lay out all the steps that were taken and summarize the feedback that was heard. I mean, the online survey, we got a huge turnout from that. I think between 300 and 400 responses. And so, it takes time to collate all those and pull out summary information. So that's what will be included there. So, corridor recommendations. This really gets into the meat of the plan. And here you see really the 4 pillars that represent the approach towards the Kirchhoff Road corridor. And again, these reflect a lot of our previous discussions. The first one here, placemaking in open space, is fairly broad, but focuses on the built environment and creating an identity for the corridor. And the city's already spent a lot of efforts on creating branding and imagery for the corridor. And so you'll see some of these recommendations here that we'll go through quickly build off of that and capitalize on these efforts and really map out a path on how to incorporate those into the corridor. Also in placemaking in open space, we have recommendations about Kimball Hill Park. That's obviously under the purview of the Park District. No surprise there. And we explain very clearly in here that these aren't initiatives that the city can undertake on their own. It's going to take cooperation with the Park District. But what we do have in here is some places to start, starting points, and discussion points with the Park District. Hey, here's what will work. We had consultants come in, they had these ideas that are based off the public engagement, because the Park District didn't do the public engagement. They were there some of the time. I met the chairman, the director there rather. But we heard a lot of stuff they haven't heard yet. And so that's why we based our recommendations on that. So that's placemaking in open space, economic development, zoning, and then transportation and mobility. So I'll go through this quickly. Again, not my intent to go through this slide by slide, page by page with you. But look at some of the great artistry that the city's already commissioned. And so we're able to bring in some of that as recommendations in the study, which just really leverages resources and efforts already made by the city. So we're really glad we could bring that in there. Kimball Hill Park. We start with parking lot improvements and then wayfinding signs. So I'll just go back there quickly. And so, in this introductory paragraph or two right there, really talk about, this report recognizes that the city of Rolling Meadows can't be in the driver's seat on this, but they will have the ability to leverage these changes through discussions and through ongoing cooperation. And so if the Park District says we don't know what to do, we can say, the city's in a position to say we have some ideas. And this came from this project that we did on Kirchhoff Road. This is what we heard. And these are strategies that respond exactly to what our residents were saying. So this is something I want to point out to you. Part of the new, this new final plan, we do have action steps. Because when you have a plan, the next step is, well, how do you do it? How do you actually bring that plan into reality? And so it was our goal as consultants to not just give some buttery, flowery ideas and thoughts. This really needs to be an implementable, actionable plan. And so each chapter, not just this, and this is just for one small part of the study, has very clear, actionable steps on how to move things forward. So this is a new element in this final plan, and then these, in the end, will be brought into an implementation matrix. Think about just a spreadsheet. And that's important. Not only will it have these action steps, but it will have a prioritization with each action step. High priority, low priority. We can move that down a little. And it will also have implementation partners. The Park District is going to be there a lot. Think about now the DOT, the city owns Kirchhoff Road, thank goodness, but other stakeholders that will be a part of the implementation process. All those will appear in the implementation matrix.
And what's also great about having these action steps in a standalone document is it can be pulled out of the report. It can be pulled out of the study, not just sit there on a shelf. And it's this implementation matrix that will be at PZC meetings, that will be at commission meetings and at council meetings. As you make work plans for the year, for next year, for 5 years out, capital improvement planning or other improvement planning. So that will be an important part of the end part of this, the end result of this study. So again, more action steps related to wayfinding and identification signs. And then here we have actual action steps about Kimball Hill Park. Prefacing again to say that the city can play a supportive role on this, but you won't get far without cooperation with the Park District. So let's move on to economic development. Again, this is information that the steering committee has already seen. We have gone through and refined the language. And importantly, allow me to, again, these are topics and discussions we reviewed before at previous discussions, so I won't go through it in detail. But here we have action steps. How do you do it? It sounds real good to say, oh yes, let's have an experiential land use based initiative. How do you actually do that? So this kind of takes these flowery concepts and brings it, rubber meets the road. This is how you can actually do it. Zoning, similar. This is also material that we've reviewed before with the steering committee. Nothing new from a recommendation standpoint or from the concepts. But what we did here is refine the language to really flesh out some of the ideas and kind of bring it down to bring it to a place where the regular reader, not experienced zoning commissioners, but regular readers can kind of go through this and be like, okay, yes, that makes sense. And we also added some graphics to really help illustrate some of the concepts. So when we talk about bulk controls and facade design, what does that actually mean? So some of these graphics can really help explain that. We talk about design, setting up design requirements, design standards, and so we have a wonderful case study from another community in the Chicago Metro that has a really detailed and easy to follow, easy to understand set of design standards and design guidelines that have made a real impact in the downtown of this community. Sign regulations are something to think about. Signs have a huge impact on the built environment. And I think almost every one of us, when we go to Los Angeles or Las Vegas and we see these old-fashioned big signs, they look great. But a lot of sign codes don't allow that level of creativity anymore. And so one thought or one concept that is in this is to revisit the sign guidelines, maybe just in this corridor, to allow more flexibility and more interest. Because at the pedestrian level, to be able to interact and see a sign and really notice it and have it be more than just the Dairy Queen sign on a pole, or just a sign on a wall. Have it be something that's really innovative and engaging. Old signs used to be, but the regulations play a role, but those have really changed the ways signs really are in the suburban environment. So more to think about. So these action steps here really go through the zoning recommendations and talk about how to actually make them happen. Here is this talks about just looking at this one with the PUD process. Planned unit developments are a really powerful planning tool, and so this strategy here can talk about or discusses a way to really make PUDs work more effectively and efficiently in helping the city realize some of their visions and some of the things that they want to see in the corridor. If somebody's going to do a PUD down here, we'd like to see a public benefit for the zoning relief you're getting, presumably, and here's a list of the public benefits that we've identified that are consistent and align with the vision of this corridor study. So having all that ready beforehand just makes such a big difference. And again, not to get zoning nerdery, but this is the new zoning district, and that is really what's going to set the palette, or you really put the canvas up to start painting. When there's a new body of regulations that really equip this area to build and develop in a way and grow in a way that aligns again with the goals and the vision of this study. So transportation and mobility, this is something we've discussed quite a bit before, and the concept of the road diet remains the principal recommendation for low cost and achievable improvements that really address the mobility challenges that are on the Jeff Road corridor.
And these challenges were, documented by facts, in fact, and documentation. We have this crash map, but also just from the really consistent input from a broad range of residents. From grade school children who don't like to cross to people who don't like to bike on it, and complaints about the speed and things like that. So the road diet remains there, and so we include not only we have documentation here that really talks about why this strategy. There's so many transportation strategies out there, and that's why we hired a specialist from one of the Chicago area's best transportation firms, Kinley Horn. And so, with his expertise, his body of expertise, he reviewed what factors are in place to make a road diet appropriate. And Kirchhoff Road checks nearly all the boxes. It's wild. So that's why the strategy is in place and is the principal recommendation from this report. And so what it does here is also identifies the different segments of the corridor and different road diet strategies in each segment to address the issues that the community is facing. So one thing I want to point out is, allow me to go back. Note this says configuration 1. There were several configurations of road diets. So they come in different shapes and sizes. You can mix and match. And so there were several configurations, and configuration 1 is the principal recommendation in this study. And so that's why it appears here. We thought there was value in including the other configurations in the study, just for comparison, and so that readers have the option to go back and look and say, hey, what could have been done? But we didn't want to clutter up the main body of the report, so we're going to put them in the appendix, just so they're there to say, okay, if we're not going to do a bike lane in this orientation, how else could it be? So you can flip to page whatever, and look at configuration 2, 3, and 4 to see what else is out there. But again, didn't want to bulk up the body and the meat of the report with that information, but I think there is value in having it there. So these are the different segments. Remember the map I just showed you with the different segments? And so, and they're, Owl Drive to Plaza, Flicker to Owl, and these are the different arrangements and road diet configurations that will appear in these different segments. So again, you'll see specific action steps. And here's where I want to touch once again on the implementation matrix. When this all comes down to it, this strategy and these actions can have prioritization, priority levels assigned to them. And so if the community feels that this road diet is a lower priority and we'd rather focus on other things first, that can be incorporated into the plan through the prioritization process. And that's something that can happen at the plan commission level, at the staff level, and that's because often prioritization is tied into funding mechanisms. We're just not able to do this right now. So that's often when those discussions will take place. So I'll close here with the final, the second final chapter of this, and that's about future development. And this closing section about future development really focuses on the built form. And includes the opportunity sites that we discussed a lot at previous meetings. So again, future development in the corridor. What does it mean? What is it going to look like? And so the last pieces of community engagement we did was a visual preference survey. Again, a huge response rate. So credit to the city on getting the word out to people to take the survey. So we asked, what is your preference, resident, survey taker, what is your preference when it comes to these types of mixed-use buildings? What resonates with you and what would be appropriate for a town center or a downtown for Rolling Meadows? And we were able to draw out some trends. And so those are summarized in this report. When we talk about mixed use, commercial, and you can see, there's not, we didn't put up a picture of the shopping center. We didn't think that would be appropriate. But you can see here that there is interest in just a progressive and interesting and inviting look that gets away from that 1980s style of a parking forward single-story shopping center. So that's just something to keep in mind as the city develops design guidelines and as the city reviews development proposals that come in. this is the information that the development community needs to have. And now you've got it. Hey, this is what we're looking for here. So this is what we as the city would like to see when a proposal comes forward. So we did visual preference for mixed use, commercial buildings, and open space. Because as you all know by now, open space was something that the residents asked a lot for. So you can see here, the chief result is something that isn't just a park to throw frisbee. It's something because that's out there already. There's a lot of that on the corridor, both south and to the north. Did I point right here? I think I did. And so there's interest in in activities, in having something to do and engaging with this open space. And so you'll see that reflected in the opportunity sites that we looked at. So let's take a quick look at these. We don't need to go through them in detail again. What I'd like to do is share with you how these are presented in the reports. So this is Opportunity Site 1. This is the one right by us, right across the street. So this summary page right here talks about community feedback. The visual preference survey did include the opportunity sites. I kind of forgot to mention that. And so we have community feedback about each one of these. So some of the key elements of the concept is here are listed there. Photo of the existing additions. Here's the graphic. Again, the commission is familiar with these. But here's what I wanted to share with you. Because if the city is to get a proposal to develop it, you're able to pass along these design principles to the development community. These are what we want to see here. The community doesn't envision this as just being a Starbucks and a parking lot. We want to get more out of it. It doesn't need to be parking forward. And so here is the same property in just a different orientation here, a site concept 2. So if you were to pass this along to developers or anybody who's interested in purchasing the site, and you're able to say, hey, this is our vision for it, that's going to get conversations started in the right direction. Opportunity Site 2 was the fire station, something we're very familiar with here. And again, you'll see design principles. And this is the drawing, and I hope you're not reading them, because I'm going to skip. But again, you've all got copies of this. You can look at it. These are the drawings that you've already seen. And we only did a single concept for this, but it just shows the reuse of the existing building. It's an asset. It's an expensive asset, but it's an asset. And so this report envisions the reuse of the building, but importantly, connectivity to the east on Kirchhoff Road. That was a big one. So Site 3 is that 1.5 acre property. You can see the photo of it there. You all know it. Here's Kirchhoff Road. Here is the restaurant site and the vacant property, stormwater area, and the townhomes behind it. And so let's just scroll through. Here we go. The design principles, maintain an active, engaged front on Kirchhoff Road. It's not going to be another parking forward strip center. I think the community just wants to see more out of it than that. Don't let off-street parking dominate it. And so we'll look at a couple of concepts where we really got away from that. And this, opens up a discussion about where people are going to park. And so that leads into the road diet discussion and on and on. It's all intertwined. The open space behind the site. This pond isn't going anywhere. And so let's make something out of it. And that doesn't mean plant a bunch of lilies, but it does mean that this site can be developed in a way that embraces this instead of just tries to hide it. Don't look there. Pedestrian connectivity, very important. The whole idea is to keep people moving in and around Kirchhoff Road. And then actual meaningful open space. I use that word intentionally. Open space that isn't just you could sit there and have it be just, nobody wants to eat a cheeseburger with, traffic and exhaust in your face. Just because you put a bench there doesn't mean it's open space. So meaningful open space that people can embrace and actually use and feel comfortable. So again, these you've seen on the steering committee, so I don't want to go through them, belabor them. But now that you have those design principles in your mind, look at how they're reflected here. And you'll see these designs. First of all, the walkability. You can walk on either end of it from one end to the other. There is an amenity here that embraces that to the south. And when we talk about open space, there's sheltered space back here behind the buildings, between the buildings. And again, this is just one of many possibilities in the way, but you'll notice here how parking doesn't own this site. and that was important to us. So this was the one concept here that we included because it was the most receptive. No, it was the one that people enjoyed the most on the survey, the visual preference survey. So we have that here. But again, parking doesn't dominate the site. There's a very natural barrier between here and here. And then we have as mentioned, that amenity space. So I'll keep going. So future considerations. This is a summary chapter that gives some closing thoughts on a series of topics, and we'll go through them, that really that will help guide the growth and development in the Kirchhoff Road corridor. The shopping center. I mean, its presence, cannot be overstated. And it's a challenge because it's an older facility and it's tenanted. It's not there are vacant spaces to be sure here and there, but by and large it is tenanted. It's being used. So this just kind of discusses the challenges that Rolling Meadows and the Kirchhoff Road corridor faces with that shopping center there. Residential density will always be an important part of the discussion. I mean, if there aren't people around, then there's downtown will always struggle. So getting residential density down here will be a long-term goal and achievable, very achievable. Telling the story is so important, and that's part of an economic development paradigm. Is to just be able to always be able to tell Rolling Meadows' story. Hey, here's what we have. Here's what our residents want. Here's our history. And so I go into it in more detail here, but I've been to seminars and they talk about this, how so many communities don't know who they are. And so if you don't know who you are, how are you going to get anybody to come there and help foster your local character, your local culture? So just important to have that concept in mind. The institutional land uses, and that's the city planner speak for churches and temples and mosques. Places of worship here, these institutional land uses are a challenge because they are big properties, but they're also huge opportunities. And so it's just going to be so important to keep communication ongoing with these property owners and just keep embracing those parcels as an active part of the Kirchhoff Road community. So they're always part of the discussion. And because they represent the key redevelopment opportunities in the next 15 years. The opportunity sites we map out here, you guys know how small they are. That's a peanut little lot over there. But you look at these church properties, they're massive. And so if this new zoning district is in place and covers those sites, when they become available very organically for redevelopment, then the tools are in place to be like, this is what we want there. And that's the best positioning that the city can hope for. And in Arlington Park, a discussion there about the potential impact that could have and connection to regional transit. So I'm going to stop talking. I hope this was helpful to give you just a high-level, quick overview of this study. Appendix, we'll be adding that. As I mentioned, it's principally going to be the alternate configurations for the road diet. And then here's where the matrix is going to go. It should be in the report, but it's also going to be a standalone document that can be pulled out as part of the PZC's work plans and other discussions. So those conclude my comments, Mr. Chair. I hope that's been helpful.
Well, thank you, Mr. Cross. It really has been a great presentation, and thanks for all your hard work throughout the process, you and your team. And I think it's a nicely comprehensive document. It's thoughtfully laid out. It seems to reflect the input that we've received, as I understand it. I'm sure we all have questions and comments, but just maybe for my benefit and perhaps for others, just so I understand, maybe this is more for staff. So this is going to be, once it's finalized, the public kind of a vision and recommendations document that will be part of the city's comprehensive plan, is that right?
That's correct.
This is also a public vision document, but for the city more broadly as a whole, is that correct?
Essentially treat this as an appendix to the comprehensive plan, where our current comp plan has a 1 to 2 page kind of placeholder for the Kirchhoff Road corridor. This is like a supplemental materials to really flesh out that section and give kind of much more guidance on the kinds of development patterns that we want to see in that corridor. So,
got it.
Yeah.
And so tonight, all we're being asked to do, as I understand it, correct us if we're wrong, is to provide any kind of final input for the draft, which will then get reflected in the draft, and then it will go before the Planning and Zoning Commission for a formal hearing.
Correct.
The public will be present with an opportunity to comment, and will either approve it or make changes to it then. And then that recommendation, if we're able to make one, will then be forwarded to City Council for kind of the binding approval of this document. Is that right?
That's correct.
And then after that, I guess I have a whole slew of questions. What happens after that? And it could go a number of different directions, but maybe we could talk more about the substance of the draft and any questions anybody has first.
Sure.
So I would open it up to my fellow members for any comments, questions that they may have on anything.
I know you talked a lot about signs, and I agree that we need signs, but I don't want an overabundance of signs. I want it to kind of be as minimalist as possible to make sure that we don't look like Las Vegas or look like.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, and that was my comment. The one on the very first one, the thing, I would like to see the second one flipped so that the park is right facing there as you come down Kirchhoff Road. You see that first. Mm-hmm. And I was surprised on the very last one, because I know on number 3 we had 2 choices. I'm surprised number 1 was the most liked choice and not number 2.
Yeah.
Because I like number 2 better. But other than that, it's a great presentation. Those are my comments.
Thank you.
How much of the report is directly derived from the public data that you receive from surveys and all of that? And how much of it is kind of editorialized by your expertise at the Lakota group? So are there any elements of the report where public said one thing, but you're like, oh, maybe we're not thinking bold enough, so we'd suggest this?
No, I can't think of any examples like that. No.
Is that a good thing?
Really, what we were able to do is take the public input and summarize the issues and synthesize that with our expertise in placemaking, in transportation, and say, here are strategies we know work that will be appropriate for this area. So we did, I think that's the best way to describe how that process worked.
And then the second question, you mentioned you attend seminars and things on kind of trends and planning. Curious, like what are some of the emerging trends that we should be aware of? Because as I looked at the report, Highland Park and the other examples shared, they did it years ago. And I imagine things have been shifting as populations change and work from home becomes more prominent. There's been a lot of kind of post-pandemic trends that have changed. So what are some of the emerging trends we should be aware of that are in the report?
I think certainly setting up a set of design standards is incredibly important because architectural trends change and financing has a huge impact on that. And so the development community knows what to expect before they come into the door or come into a public hearing and just say this, and then just hear comment after comment, but this building doesn't look like Rolling Meadows. So I think, I don't know if that's so much a trend as just a really effective tool. Yes, Highland Park did it a long time ago because they're Highland Park. But it doesn't lessen the importance of having this framework in place ahead of time instead of trying to put out a fire after it's already going. Or after pro formas have already been drawn up for development, and then saying, "Wait a minute, no, you need to spend another $500,000 on real brick." That just doesn't get anybody anywhere. So if you could have these design standards set up ahead of time, that's great. Allowing more density is going to be is huge because financing is already so hard. Interest rates aren't coming down anytime soon. So developers need a certain number of units to even be able to get off the ground or go to the bank and get financing for a project. And so the new zoning code will facilitate that. Not 6, 7 stories. It's not. I think it's 3 or 4. Something like so. It's well within range of what's already out there.
but allowing that right out of the gates and saying, here it is, without broadcasting, oh, this is going to be tough. You know, anything over 2 stories, you're going to have a hard time. That is a killer, just a killer. And so the zoning code right out of the gate says, hey, 4 stories here is fine. You're not going to run into, you know, there's not going to be public outcry about it because it fits within the context of the community already and it's allowed by code. You're not asking for a bunch of variations. So, you know, that's another way.
Questions?
Besides the church, and I've read a lot about this, is that libraries are having also issues in various communities where there's less and less people using libraries for stuff. Is the library in any of this?
They are reflected in the report as a key asset for the corridor. You know, they're a draw. And so if there were a wayfinding sign program, they would certainly be embraced in that.
Well, I'm just saying, what happens if the library goes away and people quit using it? That's my thought process.
One thing that I think is important to the library is they are doing their own strategic planning study, I believe. So
Okay.
Is this integrated with that, or?
No.
Oh,
No, it's really not. No, for one, we focused on properties more right along Kirchhoff Road.
Okay.
But we recognize, again, the report recognizes them as, hey, they're here too. Kimball Hill Park is here, North Salt Creek Park is here,
Right.
and the library's here. You know, there's a lot going on. So from that perspective, yes.
Okay. Because I know I've used the library a lot, and if you miss the sign that says library, you're gone off of Kirchhoff Road. I mean, it's a sign about that big.
Right.
It's not. Of course, the street does say library, if I remember correctly. But again, that's a small
Like Library Drive.
Yeah.
Is that right, guys?
It's a small thing. It's not well recognized.
No, and I'd
People
love to see that
most
change.
likely notice to go down the street and go through. They don't think of going off Kirchhoff Road and using that exit or entrance into the library at all.
No, I'd love to see more signage saying Kimball Hill Park through here, through the parking lot, and library down here. That'd be awesome. That'd be awesome.
More signage for sure, I think, you know, is good within ordinances and what it should look like and something that's very uniform. I thought that it was interesting in the percentages of what was chosen, what they want, what the public wants things to look like. That was very interesting to me. And I think you made an interesting concept too when you said people are going to say, oh, that doesn't look like Rolling Meadows. But that's kind of our future. I mean, we're looking to make changes so that Rolling Meadows kind of comes into a little bit more of a modernistic sort of area. So, I mean, I think you guys have done a great job, and I think there's still a lot to do, though. Sure. You know, I mean, there's a lot of pages there that have a lot of kind of blanks, and this is where we could go, this is what we could do, you know, so I think there's still a lot to be determined.
Okay, good point. Yeah.
I know last time the idea of the road diet generated a good bit of discussion, whether we should have one at all, and if so, what should it look like? You're recommending that we do implement a road diet according to the proposal or recommendation that's laid out.
Yeah.
Did you speak at all to, because wasn't there some ability to do, I don't know what the right word is, but temporary or kind of as opposed to a permanent, there's maybe like a way to kind of test one out without doing a lot of restructuring that, because it seemed like there was some question in the commission's mind, is this a good idea? Would this serve its intended purpose? Would this have blowback effects? I know you said in the report, you've laid out some conditions that you think are present that would argue for the need for a road diet as a good idea. But do you have a recommendation, or is it common for a city to kind of do one on a temporary or a test basis?
Yes,
Or should
it's
we go
possible.
all in?
No,
is it really
it's-
up to us
In
in the moment,
That's exactly
a
it.
year from now when we get to it? Or
That's
whatever
just
is.
it. And
A lot of it, it seems to be dependent on, well, what else is going on in terms of this development? Have we done the rezoning? Are there new construction? Some of the look and feel of the buildings right along this stretch starting to change where that would make a lot of sense to maybe do a road diet under those conditions, but absent those changes happening and the new development not yet starting, should we go ahead and put one in place first, build it, and then they will come, or those kind of questions?
I have a
Is that all to
piggyback
be
question
kind of-
on that as well, and is that not a huge part of finance? I mean, the road diet is going to be a huge budgetary issue.
It's going to,
Thought you have one.
it's going to be big. It's not that big is my best answer for that, because it's principally restriping. That's what's nice about this tactic. It's not jackhammering up all the asphalt and repouring. That's why the road diet as a concept is really popular. And that's why communities around Chicago, Oak Creek, and a few others have done it, because it's hundreds of thousands of dollars of what is that thermoplastic tape, the thermoplastic material they put down on the streets. That's what the dash lines are all made out of. It's that thermoplastic tape instead of laying new concrete and putting in new infrastructure.
Okay.
So there is that. It's not free, but it's not a bonded $5 million, 8-month, 9-month, 2-year project.
That's good news.
Yeah. So there is
Because I
that.
thought there was a lot more to go with that there was a lot more tearing things up, and
No.
so that's good.
There's, as with everything, you can spend as much money as you want. So you can pour new curbs here, and do things like that. There are ways to upgrade, upsells. But the bones of the whole road diet concept is it's not that expensive. It's 90% of it is striping.
You can make a big impact without it being a huge budget.
That's why it's in the report. Because a lot of this stuff, making these zoning changes, developing design standards, spending, $50,000 on signs, and I'm making the number up, but you take my meaning. All of these are achievable in a 3 to 5 year time frame without going heavily, without huge resource expenditure. That's really what we wanted to deliver to the city as part of this. Now, Opportunity Site 2, or these are, the city-owned opportunity sites, that's a different discussion. That those are going to take different levels of planning and development to come around. But at least now we have a vision for what the community can appreciate, what they could look like, how they can interact with the corridor, how they can contribute to the corridor. Now we know that, and we have a plan in place that can inform that. So there's that. Now, when it comes to really implementation and the phasing of this, yes, there are ways to do that, where you can kind of do a soft opening, something like that, to get a feel for it. But the residents, the public, just have a limited appetite for what's this now, So, and there's education. Education needs to be part of it too. So the ideas are in place, the recommendations are there. When it comes down to the implementation of it and how the city chooses to approach that, that's down the road.
And I think another big reason for the road diet is the concern of the children crossing the road there right by Comet, especially from Carl Sandburg, and they live on this side. I haven't heard it, but I'm sure that, the children are worried about being hit, or parents are concerned about their children. Also, like, they say you can't take a bike down Kirchhoff Road as of right now because of the speed of the cars that go down. I mean, it's like what has now happened on Wilkie Road. It has basically turned into a drag strip because of the new paving. I mean, at night, that's all we hear is cars going down that road 70, 80 miles an hour.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if it's easy.
And that's because there's less cars out there. There's not the traffic out there that there used to be. I mean, you have the 3 towers over by Meyer there that are basically empty. They used to have tons of people in those areas. So there's not as much traffic. I mean, traffic does come off. And everything depends on what's going to happen with the Bears. I mean, we don't know. We have no idea. If they come, people may come off at Kirchhoff Road to try to get there, but the main entrance is going to be off of Northwest Highway, is what the plan is.
If I could just touch on this point, Commissioner Furstein. So, if you read the agenda the agenda for last steering committee meeting, I had prepared a case study report that we produced by interviewing some other communities in the Chicago region who had done road road diets under, some similar and some varying conditions. And the case study in Oak Park was kind of interesting because they took a road that was triple the traffic of Kirchhoff Road, and they really wanted to reduce the traffic there. So they trimmed a lane off, and they made some side improvements, just a little bit more planting, but ultimately they did the whole thing with temporary measures. There were a couple of permanent measures. They did a few curb cuts and a few traffic islands, but the planners there were telling me that it's hard to put a number on, but they were saying that doing these changes was instrumental in actually spurring development on that corridor in Austin Boulevard. They've had $60 million worth of residential and mixed-use development on that corridor. Again, the conditions are not exactly identical, but they were, very affirmative that it was really yielding the results that they wanted, and it was with very minimal expenditure from the city budget. They didn't have much money to spend on the project, and they did it on the cheap, and it really worked. So,
I think the more positive spins we can put on that road diet for the public will help them to buy in, because I see a lot of people being more,
it's a contentious issue, absolutely.
It is, absolutely it is, but I think those positives that we can put out there, if this is a decision that's made to do that, it's gonna help.
And I think with the road diet, the idea of having traffic slows down, if you've got a development or a restaurant or something, it's going to make people look even more at those signs and whatever. Hey, let's go here and eat, or let's go here and shop, or let's go do this. Because they're not doing 40 miles an hour down Kirchhoff Road. They're going doing what, 25, 30, something like that.
There was another observation from the planners in Oak Park that was saying that their business retention along that corridor has improved significantly as well. So.
Yeah, because people are slowing down and paying more attention to what's there and saying, hey, well, let's go here, let's go there. Oh, I never noticed that before because I was going so fast, and that's something maybe I want to try.
Curious to hear what the data said. What's the principal concern against the road diet? Because I would think walkability, biking, all of that seems reasonable to improve the corridor. So is it that folks are just concerned that you won't be able to get through the corridor as fast, or what are the issues that people brought up?
Well, I would ask you, there were, I guess, when we explained it to the public at the open houses, they were supportive of it. But the knee jerk, when people saw the graphics, were like, change is bad, don't change it, it's fine. There are concerns that it will slow traffic. And that's not the intent of it, and that's not the result. That's not what happens. Traffic doesn't slow down, it follows the speed limit. So it doesn't slow traffic. But it makes it harder to speed. You speed when you have wide open sightlines, when there's a big shoulder here, a big shoulder there, 12-foot wide lanes, we all speed. It's because it's easy. But when it's one lane in each direction, maybe parallel parking, you can't. It's dangerous. And that is the goal of a road diet, is to just remove, one of the goals of a road diet is to remove the things that make it too easy to speed and make it unsafe.
Are there, when you look at Rolling Meadows, right, we don't have a metro station downtown. It's maybe less of a population than other cities that are mentioned in the report. What are the comparable corridors or areas that you looked at that offer a good kind of comparison set that are similar to us?
For the road diet in particular?
Just the corridor study in general. Like, are there any communities that we should, just go and visit and just say, like, oh, these guys had a similar issue as us. This is what they did, so we get a bit of a comparison?
No, I don't have any one or two where I could say we did that. We pulled tools from Toolbox that has been used in many communities. But I can't think of one offhand or two offhand. We're like, you know what? This is a one-to-one. So we're gonna, let's just use the same. There's so many different ingredients in each one. But just take placemaking, for instance. So I guess, one is that the village of Wheeling has Restaurant Row, but too few people were visiting it. And so they went through a big branding campaign or a big branding initiative. And it wasn't just gateway signs. It was, whole designs that's on the street sign poles and on the light poles and on the benches. So they did a big branding effort. So some of that, knowledge carries over into something like this. redeveloping sites is something that, that we've been doing at Lakota for 30 years. Not me, but they've been doing it. So that expertise came in and has been found great success in Antioch and Bourbonnais and, Indiana. So, I can't say there was one or two particular corridors in other communities that were like, hey, let's just use that.
Sure. Yeah, just for, I guess, inspiration's sake, because the reason I asked that question is that I feel like there's something uniquely Rolling Meadows about our community, right? Like the churches offer a charm that I think is really nice. We've got the parks, and other places don't have some things that we have. So I'm curious to hear from you, like what makes us unique, and what are some of the things we can lean into that might differentiate us from all these other areas?
It's an report.
Okay.
100%. And we worked in Hickory Hills recently,
Yeah.
and they would kill for something like this in Hickory Hills. There's just nothing, nothing. They don't have this. We're trying to help them foster some things, and we wrote a wonderful comprehensive plan for them, and we found some assets they can build off of. But they don't, so there's so much to build off of here, and we focused on that a lot. Yeah.
And last question for you.
Please.
There's a mention of the restaurant tax incentive in here to 10,000 or something to attract new businesses. Is there an opportunity to add to the report similar incentives that you've seen in other communities that we could draw inspiration from to attract the types of businesses that are being recommended in the report?
Yeah, it's something we can talk to staff about if that's yes, but we'll see if that's something we'll look into.
Okay.
Because there are reasons not to hurl that into a report, because it can set unrealistic expectations that the city's going to do it. Does that make sense? But
Yeah, I just meant like as a comparison. So if I'm a business owner, I'm looking here versus there, like what am I up against, right? In the corner.
yeah, we'll talk about it. Good idea.
And what drew me to Rolling Meadows was the small communities that Rolling Meadows was is when I first moved here. It was just the friendliest, most open town that I've ever seen since moving from Splains, where it was just, much, much, much lighter. I mean, what do we have, 25,000 people, somewhere around that? And it's just the community. I mean, I got 4 or 5 people on both sides of me that I know and talk to and then back too. I mean, it's just the friendliness and the down home feeling that I used to have at my former house. That's what drew me to Rolling Meadows. Plus the metro station. I mean, I just walk up the road into Arlington Park. It's in Arlington Park, but it's just a mile from my house, and I can hop on the metro right there. And that was when the Bears were looking at it, that was the big transportation thing to bring people here, was the metro station right there. And now today, I mean, you go there, there's maybe 10 people standing on the platform versus 300 to 400. The parking lot there at 6 o'clock used to have 900 cars. Now there's maybe 50.
Oh, it's gotten pretty busy. I take the
I mean,
metro,
but I don't see it at my time,
Yeah.
and I don't see it at
It's
night.
pretty busy now.
I don't see it at night. I mean, when I go there, I'm there at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I don't get off till 7. So at the most, I've seen 50 cars.
Yeah.
I mean, if you've seen more, that's great, but I haven't seen any more
It's
than 50.
7. It's busier.
It's busier because that parking lot used to be filled at 6:15.
Mm-hmm.
You couldn't get a parking lot unless you went out to the South 40.
I have to say, I'm not super surprised by the report's findings or by the survey's findings, honestly. I am very appreciative. I feel like you guys really took your time to listen to the community and to listen to all of our concerns and comments, especially when we're talking about the open spaces and how we do have this park. And I feel like you really captured that idea of what about behind the shopping center. What are we gonna do with that space? It's open and it can be a gateway into this park. What do we do about how we get people to the library? Because the library's just gonna get better. And I believe that it's a huge, major draw for families to come into the community. And when there are families and people, they will walk over and get an ice cream or a coffee and read their little books in whatever little pocket park or whatever we put on Kirchhoff Road. I think that's really important, and I appreciate that you guys went ahead and really listened to what we were saying. The road diet, I really like the pictures that you guys put in with how it looks from this angle, because looking from down was kind of like really, I think for resident, I'm a huge proponent. I think that the road diet is the way to go. Between the safety, the parking, the additional parking, the bikeability, the kids, walking to school. And I think that when you're looking at just the road from above and you just see lanes, that's like, whoa. This, when you're looking at it like this, I think that it captures exactly what we're trying to do. And I really appreciated that image. So thank you and great job.
Thank you very much.
It may be outlined on there, and I can't say that I see it or didn't or don't. Bike lanes, are they on that? They are on that road diet, on that, okay. Yep, that's kind of what I thought when I looked at that. I just wanted to make sure.
Allow me to show you my favorite thing. So many, when you walk around other communities, look, they have bike lanes, but they're on the outside of the
You're on the
parked
wrong
cars.
side.
Exactly. And
Yeah,
so,
that was great.
I didn't work with Justin, our transportation tech, because he's just so good at what he does, he doesn't need my help. But I love that he put protected bike lanes in here. And by protected, I mean behind the parked cars. So you have parked cars protecting the bikers. And all it is a spatial shift. It doesn't take any more room, and so it just drives me nuts as a city planner that so many communities, including where I live, have the bike lanes, on the other side. So parked cars are here against the sidewalk and the bike lane is next to them. And it's just, again, it's a repainting. That's it. So yes, hope that answers your question.
Did you?
Yeah.
have something?
No, Mr. Chair, I'm ready. What's up?
Back to the park, which obviously a key piece to the puzzle here, Kimball Hill Park. And I know in the action steps, there are a number of items to improve the wayfinding and the visibility and the parking and the access in. But did you guys think about any specific action item as far as working with the park district to kind of modernize or improve the park proper, which I know is a park district province? Like, to me, look, if we're gonna spend all this money and effort to do all that we're doing in all the surrounding area, if any of it comes to fruition, that would be fantastic. The more the better, obviously, but is there something we could do to encourage the park district to invest the resources to upgrade the park itself? Or is that
gets a little away from this
or-
project. Yeah.
I know it's not within our authority, but we've got a lot of things in here that talk, liaise with the shopping center, talk to the park district, work with other stakeholders. Could we add something in here about another specific action item to the list?
Yeah.
Or at least to have the park district consider whether it's appropriate and there's the resources and the initiative to kind of upgrade the park in whatever way comes about, but just for them to consider it. Because to me, it seems like that itself is looking a little dated as well in terms of upgraded amenities or landscaping. Any thoughts there from you, Mr. Cross, or anybody else on that?
Well, I'll just say quickly that gets far. That's a far reach for this corridor study. When it comes down to the actual park facilities, and if they're doing a master planning effort, now's the time to go to some of those board meetings.
But they're not. Right?
I thought I heard they were doing a master planning.
I think they actually are doing a comprehensive plan shortly.
So what are thoughts there from you, Mr. Savage, in terms of engaging with them to
We
kind of
would
do
be
this?
happy to engage with them, and I'm hoping, I'm not sure of what their process is going to be looking like exactly. I think it'll be pretty similar to the kind of work that has happened with this plan, so hopefully there's plenty of points of engagement for both the city and the community at large that we can help to collaborate and steer the ship.
Well, they're doing that big project down by the community center, right?
That's correct. I mean, that's one, and
That we approved, and I've been to Kimball Hill Park. Yes, it's dated, but it's still a very well laid out park. I see people fishing all the time. I see people sitting on the benches all the time. They're always sitting within the area where that little waterfall set. I've seen people out there using the pergola for weddings, birthday parties, whatever. That may be needing updating. I mean, that's probably something that could be updated, but there are people using that park all the time, along with the Frisbee park by the library. I mean, that's constantly used for people playing Frisbee golf.
Sure.
I think those are great points, engaging, if the library is doing some of their own master plan to, reinvent themselves, if the park district is doing a master plan, because a lot of times entities, they're kind of going in their own directions. And then when everything gets done, it's like, well, why didn't the village talk to us? Why didn't the park district talk to us? I think now's the time that those engagements really need to happen when all of these big decisions are being made.
Yeah, that would be great for the planning commission and even the city to have all those plans in front of, maybe not us, but maybe another committee to kind of make them work together. So it makes
Well,
sense.
at least everybody knows what direction they're going in.
Right.
And that might influence
Right.
the direction that they are going in or
Right.
that we are going in, because
Right.
it could be much more cohesive.
Right, it'd be much more cohesive to understand what they're doing so that we could do a better job.
And we did speak with the park district a lot for this study. The director, staff, so a lot of their thoughts are reflected in these recommendations.
Which
Well, that's
is
good.
great.
I think having this plan in front of them as they both take on their comprehensive planning studies, this is a nice little connecting corridor that kind of brings a lot of these amenities together. So
Well, it would all make it easy to connect then. If we know what they're doing, then we can make better plans for Kirchhoff Road. We know what the library's doing, we can make better plans there. If we all communicate, it would be a fantastic idea to get them all on board, even if it's just you, or if we have the opportunity to kind of meet with them, that would be good also.
Just for the city staff, I believe the library is on the final stage of their plan, so in some of what I understand they were looking at is the external site of the library, which is right by the park, which is off Kirchhoff, so it might be worth integrating some of that into the report too, just because of how close the library is to Kirchhoff Road.
noted.
Yeah, whatever staff could do to stay in front and get in front of these other entities throughout the implementation of the various plans would be a great idea.
Yeah, because then we can put additional signage that says golf, Frisbee golf this way, along with the, then, oh, well, I didn't even know that was there.
Yeah, the engagement, I think, is big.
Yep. Because if we're going to do signage, let's do it right, not have to, oh, well, we should have put one here, we should have done this. Let's try to coordinate our thoughts and issues.
So Rob, you want to summarize kind of next steps again for the group? Where do we go from here?
Yeah, so there's no voting action tonight. This is purely discussion based. The city is hoping to bring this through for approval from the Planning and Zoning Commission on the March, hang on, let me check my dates. It will be on the March the 4th Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. It will then go through to 2 council hearings, and this should be hopefully on everyone's calendar, 2 council readings through March for further approval, unless, of course, there's a continuation from the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Now, when this goes in front of us, are you going to have the zoning within the?
I was going to touch on that. So
Right.
staff is currently working with one of our consultants on having that drafted. Our goal would be to have that at the same meeting as, your final approval or recommendation of this plan.
So
to
that
keep
would, then
momentum
that would
going.
roll into the plan once we approve the
Yeah, it's
zoning.
basically a recommendation of the plan, and we would, in tandem, ask for your recommendation to bring that forward at the same time as,
Now, would we
recommending
do
this
that
plan.
first before that?
I mean, I think technically we would want to,
Get the zoning
vote on
in.
this part of it first, the recommendation of the plan that recommends the zoning
Okay.
change, and then we would do this, but as I said, that's, staff
But
is working on.
that zoning verbiage and whatever's gonna, you'll have it in front of us so that we can
If
review
it's
it.
ready, that's our goal, to
That's our
have that
goal,
at the
okay.
same time
All
in the
right.
March meeting. So.
Yeah, it's gonna be huge, and a huge part of what our commission is gonna be doing going forward to implement this. But is Lakota, are you involved in the zoning technicalities of the proposal, or is there another
No,
expert that we're
we've been
using?
working with one of the, one of the team member consultants
Okay.
that, have helped with this process. We're engaged them for that part of it.
So relying on their expertise and experience with similar
Yep, similar
venues and,
projects.
what
and-
is the zoning gonna look
Yep,
like?
And, all of that, questions about bulk regulations and, recommendations on height and, possible design standards and all sorts of things like that, so.
It's the same expert who made these recommendations here, and then the city commission who separately take, you actually write the code for us.
Okay,
Because that's a huge undertaking.
for sure. Again, that seems to be a big part of what we're gonna be doing
Right,
going forward, is approving zoning code.
right.
and
Along with
hearing
this
any
report.
Changes, or, the report, and then any variances or
Right.
special uses that.
Right.
Yeah.
Sorry, so then, Rob, were you, is there anything else?
Well, that'll be the immediate kind of
Sure.
administrative
Going forward,
process
yep.
going forward. So, hopefully 3 months, we get an approval, and then kind of the work begins of implementation. And so, luckily the plan does outline a lot of these action steps, and we can kind of start to chip away at the start, hopefully some smaller ticket kind of things where we've completed our branding, the city rebranding. So hopefully we're basically scheduling refurbishment of all of the city signage and media over the next 12 months, and it'll be wayfinding, improvements, and so on and so forth. So that's all kind of more in-house, just nitty-gritty planning and administration.
So you mentioned the implementation matrix.
Yeah.
Is that something you're helping on?
Yeah, we'll
To set
pull it
out?
together and then provide staff with direction on how to really assign priorities. But
Okay.
we'll put the bones together. But
Then it's up
becomes
to
a lot of-
staff pretty much to.
Exactly. Again, decisions at the city leadership level about where priority falls, where resources should be assigned, that sort of thing. And we'll guide the team through it.
And we'll get updates in the meetings about all this stuff.
Absolutely.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
I don't know, will you, Rob?
No, your job is done at that point. No, of course, we'll keep you very well informed.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Can't be involved?
We're taking volunteers for
Sure.
putting
I'll
up signs.
volunteer, I don't bother me, I don't care. Doesn't matter.
What has happened in my line of work is that steering committees will fill out the implementation matrix without having a full appreciation of the city's financial position or things like that. And so you have an approved comprehensive plan with high priority for a project that is simply not achievable.
Right.
And then that just, discredits the whole plan. And all of a sudden you've got this, it can't be implemented the way it was approved.
Right.
And so that's why we have found that you all see the actions. Every action is in the plan, you've seen it. But when it comes down to the actual nitty gritty about how we're gonna do it, plans tend to be more successful when that is taken on by the city leadership and
Right.
public works director.
Right.
Who knows how many streets crew he has, or the park district, things like that. So hope that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
Makes sense, absolutely.
All right.
Okay. This is great. I mean, this is a great vision document, great recommendations. It just seems like this could go so many different directions depending on what's happening on the ground in any given point in time, who's interested in coming to the city and putting in a development, or just, I think this bill lays out the framework in a nice, very comprehensive, thoughtful way. So I
Okay.
appreciate all your hard work.
You're welcome. It's been a blast.
But you're not done yet.
Yes, sir.
So, is there anything else, Mr. Savage, or?
No, we were just
Joanna?
gonna keep it to
We good?
this single discussion.
So we pretty much, is it fair to say we're good with the draft as written?
Yep.
There were no material changes that you
No.
took from that, right?
No, we can
Strike
see
this
if we want to have a
section, or-
discussion about, in there about other incentives in other communities. Maybe that doesn't even need to be in the plan. It can just be something that we can inform from an economic development perspective.
That would be helpful,
Yeah,
Okay.
I think, for city staff and as well as for us, to give
just to
us
see
an
what's out
idea.
there. And, yeah, I know the people and have the resources to pull that information together, so good, glad you thought of it.
Yeah, good comment. So that's it?
Yeah.
Okay. Well then, can I have a motion to adjourn tonight's workshop meeting?
I'll make a motion to adjourn the workshop meeting of January 7th, 2025 for the Planning and Zoning Commission of the Kirchhoff Road Steering Committee.
Motion by Commissioner Durkin. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Furstein. By voice vote, all in favor, please state yes.
Yes.
Yes. All opposed, please state no. With, is it 8? 8 yeses. 7 yeses, sorry. Yes. 7 yeses and 0 noes. The motion to adjourn is approved. The next Planning and Zoning Commission meeting is scheduled for February 4th.
Nothing in January, no, we're in
Right.
January.
Is that it? Are we going into February now?
This
Okay,
was our January meeting.
perfect. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
I haven't looked at the agendas for
Not the other
zoning
pages.
yet. I haven't
I
looked.
got 77 pages.
Trying to do a little
I gotta find out why I didn't get 90.